So, just to remind everyone, because of a lab accident involving blood, I have been on prophylactic HIV anti-retroviral drug called Truvada. I figured I would use this time to discuss the side effects and some of the coping mechanisms I used on it, especially if someone else has to go through or live with them. So, the side effects of the drug have been wide and varied. First off is a lack of energy, secondly is feverishness, and the first is quite probably caused by the second. When you become feverish, your brain makes you feel tired so that you stop using energy and will rest and recover. I had to take a leave on top of a leave to break my fever. The immune system actually works like an alarm system. It will more often than not work overboard, but it's good that it does so you know when something is wrong. Often breaking the fever is actually better for you if it helps you get to sleep easier, which is what the body is really wanting. I knew exactly why my immune system was going overboard, so to make it through the day I had to take a leave 2 to 3 times a day. I use Aleve or sodium naproxen because all other painkillers to break your fever interfere with liver function. Liver function is essential to getting the drug to the areas where you want it to be. Well, a carrier called interleukin-1 is a communication chemical that works with the immune system. It has multiple functions that help you actually fight infection, but on top of that it also goes to the brain and does something strange. It makes you drowsy, and it also makes you feel pain and achy. Oddly, the ache you feel is a signal information you feel all the time. Your brain just doesn't register it because it's so low. It cranks up your sensitivity now, and you feel awful. Why would your brain do this? It's for the exact same reason as to why you feel tired. Remember, we evolved from animals that would just keep going until they went beyond their breaking point and dropped dead from exhaustion if the body hadn't figured out some form of mechanism. Hell, humans work themselves to death too, and don't listen to their bodies for that matter. So the body goes, okay, you won't rest voluntarily? I'll make you rest, even if it's inconvenient or dangerous for the animal or person to be sick and in pain. Sadly, the chance of microscopic animals killing you is just as high as large animals killing you in terms of evolution. So on top of fever and tiredness, my mental capacities were lowered. I was literally dumber. You give me an IQ test and I would have scored much lower. Processing anything took longer, and I had to scale back my expectations of myself because I was much more likely to make a mistake, and going back and double-checking was near impossible. Fact-checking, site sourcing, and thinking of how people may criticize my videos all went out the window. It was just impossible to do. Just doing something drained me enough. Now ask me to go back and check it again? Forget it. It's like it regressed me back to 7 years ago or so when I didn't actually understand how evidence works and how much effort was involved to back something up. Maybe since that area of the brain wasn't as enforced, it was the first to shut off. Luckily, I'd banked a few scripts prior to taking the pills, but there's one particularly discussing IQ and epigenetics that's still got some errors in it. It felt like different parts of my brain shut down, and I had to cobble together the remaining parts to come up with a functional brain. It wouldn't have surprised me if that's what a teenager has to go through when hormones kick in. It has taken yet another month after being off the pills to reconnect the dormant parts to the cobbled parts and figure out the most efficient process of thinking. Also, something people probably spend their 20s trying to do. It wasn't until a month after being off the drugs that I was even able to write a good script. Until then, it was just like I threw words on the screen and I was proud of myself for what I did, considering the effort. My brain functioned, but nowhere near what I had been capable of off the drugs. I also had become more animistic in my thinking. I had a chair from college I was planning on getting rid of, but I just didn't get around to printing up the advertisement signs for the apartment complex until after I started the drugs. But when I finally did, I felt a serious emotional loss when I thought about losing the chair. We had no use for it, it was getting in the way, but I had such an emotional attachment to that chair, I couldn't bear to get rid of it. The morning after I stopped taking the pills, I put up signs and I didn't even feel a touch of remorse. I discussed this with Michael Payton, 67, at the rally, who has a PhD in neurology, how it would be interesting to do an experiment on people who had no problems getting rid of useless items, and in fact relished it, then put them on Truvada and see if they had the same areas light up as that of a hoarder. He said it sounded like a really interesting study, but finding the funding might be difficult. He said he had many ideas like this that he would just love to study, but he said sadly being a doctor was a bit discouraging because you basically get to ask nature one specific question and you get 5 years of grants to work solely on it. So in your lifetime as a PhD, you get to ask nature around 7 questions that you may or may not be able to find the answer to. But it's the only way we find new things, and with more nations becoming more educated, there are even more PhDs, therefore accelerating the speed of science. Something I had to do was get 8 hours of sleep. If I did not, I would be basically sick in bed with the flu symptoms for a day. I was sick for 1 day the second week and sick 2 days the third week. If you have a chance between anything, even sex, sleep comes first. Which really didn't matter because in my final week, my libido was at 0. I think the last time I felt that uninterested in sex was when I was 10. I find the most interesting thing about taking the drugs is how easily the body can adapt to change. It might not be the most optimal, but it lessens in intensity. The first day I took the drug, I felt like I was dying. I was so sick. Over the next few days, my body adjusted to it, as the body detects change, not sensation itself. The anti-inflammatory helped, but much of it was just the body adjusting to the new normal. I also discovered that drinking lots of water like I normally do seems to eat away the time-release layers faster, giving you a large dose at once instead of spreading it out all day. So I had to drink saturated liquids like vitamin water to hydrate myself. Learning little tricks like this and following a sleep routine helped out so much. The day after I stopped taking them, I spent the morning feeling violated, like some clumsy idiot had bumbled through my deepest personal details and identity and broke things. My brain on the drug was like a different person in my mind, and I had to get over it. I even ended up bouncing a rent check on the drugs, which I never do, and it cost me about $130. Once I was able to get over it, partitioning that month away from who I am, I was able to slowly restore brain connections to where I was before. As I said before, I've just now reached near, if not 100% of my pre-pill capabilities, and I'm remembering the enjoyment of writing again. I've got a lot of new scripts and ideas to write. Many times a long break from writing can bring some great results and bring you a fresh perspective on everything. Take care, everyone.